There comes a moment in every life when holding on becomes heavier than carrying a mountain, yet letting go feels like tearing away a piece of your own soul. We cling not because things are valuable, but because they are familiar. We grip our pain, our fears, our memories as if they define our very existence. Letting go is not the weakness people imagine. It is the silent battle we fight within ourselves, the courage to release what no longer allows us to breathe. Strength is not in the fist that tightens, but in the hand that finally opens. Letting go challenges the ego more than the mind because the ego thrives on control, ownership, and the illusion of permanence. When you release something, it is not the situation that shakes you, it is the ego losing the ground it stands on. The moment you loosen your grip, the ego feels threatened, as if its identity is being dissolved. That inner resistance is what makes the process feel like a personal battle rather than a simple choice. Holding on creates an emotional weight that quietly drains your strength day after day. You carry old memories, old fears, and old versions of yourself as if they are obligations carved into stone. This weight does not break you suddenly, it exhausts you slowly. Life becomes heavy not because of what happens to you, but because of what you refuse to let fall away. The real burden is never the past, it is your attachment to it. True strength is revealed when you trust what life brings after you release what no longer serves you. Letting go is an act of faith, not foolishness. It demands that you believe in possibilities you cannot yet see. When you stop clinging to what is familiar, you create space for something deeper, wiser, and more aligned with your growth. The unknown becomes less frightening when you realize it holds the very transformation you have been resisting. Letting go does not erase the past, it simply frees you from living inside it. You can honor your memories without allowing them to imprison your present. Many people confuse attachment with love, forgetting that love expands you while attachment restricts you. What you cling to out of fear is not love, it is dependence. Releasing that dependence allows you to stand on your own ground, unshaken and unafraid. Life flows when you stop resisting its natural direction. Growth rarely arrives gently, it often feels like breaking before rebuilding. When you surrender old identities, painful attachments or worn out expectations, you reclaim your power. Letting go becomes the moment you return to yourself with clarity and strength. It is not a loss but a liberation, not a weakness, but the deepest form of courage you can ever practice. Holding on creates an emotional weight that grows heavier with every passing day, quietly draining your inner strength. You cling to old moments, old wounds, and old identities as if they are pieces of yourself that cannot be separated. Yet it is this very grip that weakens you, not the memories themselves. The weight settles into your thoughts and your breath, turning simple days into burdens and small challenges into mountains. What exhausts you is not life, but the stubborn refusal to release what has already completed its role in your journey. We often remain stuck not because life is unkind, but because we refuse to loosen our grip on what we believe should have been. The mind creates stories and expectations that feel safer than the truth, and so we hold on to illusions even when they hurt us. This resistance creates friction within the heart, making growth feel impossible and peace feel distant. The past keeps replaying itself because you keep feeding it with attention, fear and attachment, allowing it to shape your present in ways it no longer deserves. When you refuse to let go, you trap yourself in a cycle where nothing new can enter and nothing old can leave. Life becomes a loop instead of a path. You begin to mistake stagnation for stability, believing that staying with the known will protect you. But the known often becomes a cage, and the longer you grip its bars, the more your inner world shrinks. The pain of holding on becomes greater than the fear of releasing, yet you continue resisting because the familiar feels easier than the unknown. The truth is that release is the only way to reclaim your strength. Letting go is not an act of abandonment, it is an act of alignment. It shifts you from clinging to what drains you to welcoming what elevates you. When you loosen your hold on old attachments, you create space for clarity to rise. You begin to recognize that your worth does not come from what you keep, but from what you have the courage to release. Strength is not proven by endurance alone, but by the wisdom to stop carrying what was never meant to stay. Life was never designed to be grasped tightly. It was meant to be lived with open hands. Everything flows. Time, people, opportunities, emotions, and trying to imprison any of it only leads to suffering. When you finally let go, you do not lose anything essential, you lose only the weight that was suffocating your growth. And in that release, you rediscover yourself, lighter, clearer, and far more powerful than the person who once believed that holding on was the only way to survive. True strength is the ability to trust what comes after the release, because trust demands far more courage than control ever will. When you let go of something that once felt essential, you stand at the edge of uncertainty with nothing familiar to hold. The mind searches for guarantees, but life offers none. Strength is found not in knowing what comes next, but in standing firm even when the next step is invisible. Trust becomes the inner fire that keeps you moving when everything around you tells you to hold back. Letting go means believing that life has space for something better even when the present feels empty. This belief is not a blind hope, it is a recognition that life never closes one door without preparing another. But you cannot walk toward a new opening while your hands are still clutching the old one. You must release the past to make room for the future, because growth cannot enter a heart that refuses to open. Trust becomes the bridge between what you have lost and what you are destined to gain. When you surrender what no longer aligns with who you are becoming, you awaken a deeper intelligence within yourself. This intelligence knows that forcing life only creates more suffering. It knows that clinging to what is fading steals your strength, while allowing it to go restores your clarity. Trusting the unfolding of life gives you the freedom to stop fighting battles that were never meant for you. It allows you to move in harmony with the direction life is guiding you. Believing in something better requires you to confront your fears, because fear always whispers that nothing good will replace what you release. Fear convinces you that loss is permanent, that emptiness is dangerous, and that letting go is the same as failing. But strength rises when you stop listening to fear's false warnings. When you trust the flow of life more than the grip of your past, you discover that emptiness is not a threat, it is space being cleared for something greater. In the end, trusting what comes after the release transforms you from someone who survives life into someone who participates in it fully. You stop living with clenched fists and start living with an open heart. You understand that life is not waiting to punish you, it is waiting to free you. And the moment you believe in the possibility of better, you step into a version of yourself that is no longer driven by fear, but guided by strength, clarity, and faith in the unfolding path ahead. Letting go does not erase the past, because the past is carved into your awareness, your choices, and your understanding of life. What changes is not the memory, but the power you allow it to hold over you. When you stop replaying old stories with the same pain, the past loses its grip and becomes a teacher instead of a prison. You recognize that remembering is not the problem, reliving is. The moment you stop reliving, You begin reclaiming pieces of yourself that were trapped in yesterday's shadows. You honor your journey by acknowledging every experience without letting it dictate your present. Honor does not mean clinging to what happened. It means allowing it to stand in your history without controlling your direction. Many people confuse remembrance with attachment, but the two are worlds apart. Remembrance brings wisdom, while attachment brings weight. When you honor your past with clarity instead of emotion, you transform old wounds into lessons instead of chains. Yesterday should never dominate today. Yet many lives are lived entirely in what has already ended. The grip of old moments shapes reactions, decisions, and even identities, leaving no room for change. When the past dominates, the present becomes a faint echo rather than a living reality. Breaking this dominance requires a conscious shift, a willingness to stop carrying old versions of yourself into every new moment. This shift is not easy, but it is the doorway to real freedom. Letting go frees your energy, your attention, and your emotional space. It allows you to meet life as it is rather than as you fear it will be. When you release the old emotions that once controlled you, your inner world becomes lighter and more open. You start seeing possibilities instead of limitations. This freedom is not something anyone else can give you. It is a decision you make when you choose peace over suffering and clarity over confusion. When you stop allowing the past to dominate your present, you step into a life guided by awareness rather than memory. You no longer react from old pain but respond from newfound understanding. Your choices become cleaner, your mind becomes sharper, and your heart becomes calmer. The past remains a part of you, but it no longer owns you. In that liberation, you discover that letting go was never about forgetting. It was about finally living fully in the moment that is in front of you. Attachments disguise themselves as love, loyalty, or responsibility because the mind wraps them in noble words to avoid confronting the fear beneath them. What you call devotion is often a refusal to face loss, and what you call loyalty is sometimes only the terror of standing alone. These disguises make attachments feel righteous even when they suffocate your growth and distort your peace. The heart knows the difference, but the mind insists on holding the familiar even when it is slowly draining your strength. Real love never demands imprisonment, yet attachment convinces you that suffering is a form of commitment. You cling to people, memories, and expectations believing that letting go would somehow betray them. But anything that requires you to sacrifice your inner freedom is not love. It is fear wearing the mask of devotion. Fear chains the heart, while love allows it to breathe. When you hold on out of fear, you do not protect the bond, you only weaken your own spirit. Attachment restricts you because it is built on the belief that you cannot exist fully without what you are holding. It reduces your life to a single point of dependency and leaves you anxious about losing it. This dependency steals your courage to evolve and your clarity to choose wisely. You live with the constant tension of maintaining what is slipping away instead of embracing what life is trying to bring forward. Love, in its truest form, expands you. It allows you to remain open, steady, and grounded even when circumstances change. It invites you to grow without clinging, to care without controlling, and to give without expecting something in return. When love is real, it does not tighten your world, it widens it. It does not demand that you shrink yourself to keep something alive, it supports your growth even if it requires letting go. Understanding the difference between attachment and love frees you from emotional bondage. Once you see that fear is the root of your grip, the illusion of necessity begins to dissolve. You learn that letting go does not mean abandoning love. It means releasing the cages built around it. In that release, love becomes lighter, clearer, and more truthful, and you become strong enough to live without chains. Letting go reshapes your inner identity because every attachment you hold defines how you see yourself. When you cling to outdated versions of who you once were, you trap yourself in a role that no longer matches your growth. These old identities become walls around your potential, keeping you confined to patterns that no longer serve your evolution. Releasing them feels unsettling because it challenges the story you have carried for years. But it is this very discomfort that signals transformation. As you shed these past identities, you begin to notice how much of your life was built around habits, beliefs, and fears that no longer belong to you. The mind resists this shift because it fears emptiness, but that emptiness is not a void, it is space. Space for clarity, space for truth, space for a newer, stronger version of yourself to emerge. You cannot step into who you are becoming while clinging to who you used to be. Letting go forces you to meet yourself without labels and without roles, and this naked truth can feel overwhelming. But it is in this rawness that real identity begins. You start seeing yourself beyond titles, beyond past decisions, and beyond the expectations others placed on you. The identity you build from this point is no longer shaped by fear or memory, it is shaped by awareness and choice. This transformation is not always gentle. Old identities often carry emotional weight, unfinished stories, and unhealed wounds. When they fall away, the mind may try to pull you back into the comfort of the familiar. But what once felt like stability slowly reveals itself as limitation. By refusing to return to those limiting versions of yourself, you allow your strength to rise from deeper within, creating an identity rooted in truth rather than survival. With every layer you release, your inner world becomes clearer and your path becomes brighter. The person you are becoming does not need the protection of old identities. They need your willingness to evolve. Letting go opens the door to this evolution, allowing you to live from purpose instead of fear and from authenticity instead of habit. Through this continuous reshaping, you discover that your true identity is not something you cling to. It is something you grow into. The discomfort you feel while letting go is not a sign of weakness, but the first tremor of transformation. This uneasiness shakes the foundations you have built around your fears, your expectations, and your familiar patterns. It pushes you out of the false comfort you have created and forces you to confront the parts of yourself you have avoided. Discomfort rises because something within you is shifting and the mind resists anything that threatens its old structure. Growth rarely arrives with softness, because real growth demands the breaking of what no longer serves you. The breaking feels painful only because you were attached to what needed to fall apart. When the old layers begin to crack, they expose the raw truth beneath, and truth often feels harsh before it begins to strengthen you. The mind interprets this breaking as danger, but the heart knows it as liberation. What feels like collapse is often the beginning of expansion. The process of letting go strips away illusions you once relied upon for stability. These illusions crumble loudly, leaving you momentarily exposed, unsure and vulnerable. Yet vulnerability is the doorway through which clarity enters. You start seeing life, yourself, and your path with sharper awareness because nothing is hiding behind excuses or emotional armor anymore. This clarity may sting at first, but it is the sting of waking up, not falling apart. When the rebuilding begins, it does so quietly, almost unnoticed. Strength returns in small fragments. Your breath becomes steadier, your mind becomes clearer, and your heart becomes lighter. You realize that the pain was not the transformation itself, but the resistance to it. The moment resistance weakens, healing begins. You start rebuilding not with fear but with newfound understanding, and every step forward feels more grounded and real. Transformation completes itself when you stop longing for what you lost and begin honoring what you have become. The discomfort that once frightened you now becomes proof of your evolution. You recognize that every tear, every fracture, and every moment of doubt was shaping a stronger, freer version of you. Letting go no longer feels like losing, it feels like shedding. And in that shedding, you discover the resilience that was hidden beneath the weight you were never meant to carry. Letting go teaches emotional maturity because it forces you to confront the parts of yourself that are still bound by ego, fear and expectation. Emotional growth cannot exist where clinging dominates because attachment clouds judgment and keeps the mind restless. When you release, you are compelled to face your own reactions, your own biases and your own limitations without blaming others or circumstances. This confrontation is uncomfortable, yet it is the foundation of true emotional intelligence. Through letting go, you begin to understand that peace is far more valuable than pride. Pride often convinces you to hold on to what is no longer yours, insisting that releasing it would be weakness. But emotional maturity teaches you that strength is not measured by stubbornness or control, but by the calm that emerges when you stop resisting life. When you prioritize peace over pride, you stop fighting unnecessary battles and conserve your energy for what truly matters. Clarity becomes your guide when you learn to let go, because clarity cannot exist where emotional clutter persists. Holding on to old hurts, regrets, or expectations blurs perception and keeps the mind trapped in confusion. The act of releasing these mental and emotional weights allows you to see situations, people, and even yourself with honesty. Decisions become sharper, reactions calmer, and your inner world more balanced because clarity has replaced the noise of attachment. Letting go also teaches the importance of comfort versus truth. Comfort may tempt you to remain in familiar situations, relationships, or thought patterns even when they no longer serve your growth. Emotional maturity demands that you choose truth over comfort, even when it is painful. Growth is never found in the safety of stagnation, it is found in the courage to confront reality and act in alignment with it. As this process continues, you begin to notice a transformation in the way you respond to life. Situations that once triggered anger, anxiety or frustration no longer control you. Your emotional responses become measured and intentional rather than reactive. Through letting go, you discover that emotional maturity is not about avoiding pain or maintaining appearances, it is about choosing peace, seeking clarity, and aligning your actions with truth regardless of how uncomfortable it may feel in the moment. Life flows only when you stop resisting because resistance blocks the natural rhythm of existence. When you try to force situations, people, or outcomes to fit your expectations, you create tension that distorts your perception and clouds your judgment. The more you struggle against what is, the further you move from what could be. Life is not meant to be controlled rigidly, it is meant to be navigated with awareness and adaptability. When you release the urge to control every detail, you allow energy to move freely within you. This freedom creates space for clarity, creativity, and understanding to emerge. The mind that constantly resists is trapped in patterns of frustration and fear, while the mind that allows life to unfold experiences insight and guidance. Flow is not passive, it is the alignment of your actions, intentions, and awareness with the natural movement of life. Forcing what no longer fits keeps you tethered to stagnation. You hold on to people, situations, or beliefs that have already served their purpose, believing that persistence will preserve them. In reality, This only prolongs discomfort and delays growth. Letting go of what no longer aligns allows life to redirect you toward opportunities, experiences, and connections that resonate with your true path. The release itself becomes a catalyst for transformation. Flow emerges when you trust the process of life rather than insist on controlling every outcome. Trust does not mean inaction, it means acting with awareness and then allowing results to unfold without clinging. By ceasing to resist, you stop expending energy on battles that cannot be won and start focusing on what can be nurtured, cultivated, and expanded. Life begins to move in ways that feel effortless, even when effort is applied intelligently and purposefully. Resistance keeps the heart and mind rigid, while surrender softens and strengthens simultaneously. When you stop forcing and start allowing, challenges are met with resilience instead of struggle. Life moves and you move with it, guided by clarity rather than compulsion. In this alignment, you discover that flow is not a state to chase, but a state to live, cultivated through awareness, release, and the courage to stop resisting what is already unfolding around you. Letting go is the act that returns your power, because it removes the chains that bind your mind, heart and spirit. When you hold on to circumstances, memories or people, you unconsciously hand over your energy to them, allowing them to dictate your mood, choices and sense of self. Every moment of attachment is a moment where your power is fragmented and dispersed. The simple act of release redirects that energy back to you where it can be used to create, to grow and to live fully. When you stop being chained to what no longer serves you, you begin to reclaim the authority over your own life. You realize that no external situation has the right to control your inner state unless you allow it. The freedom gained through letting go is not just emotional or mental, it is existential. It restores the natural balance of your being, giving you the clarity and strength to act from a place of choice rather than compulsion. Letting go requires confronting the fear of loss because attachment often masquerades as security. The moment you release, fear rises to the surface, challenging your courage and testing your resolve. Yet each act of surrender strengthens you, proving that your power is not dependent on holding things tightly, but on your ability to remain whole without them. Freedom, in this sense, is the ultimate demonstration of strength because it arises from trust in yourself and in the flow of life. As you reclaim your power through release, you begin to notice how much energy was wasted in resistance and clinging. Emotional burdens lighten, mental clarity increases, and the heart experiences a sense of expansiveness previously blocked by attachment. This liberation allows you to redirect your focus from what you cannot control to what you can cultivate, giving rise to creativity, intention, and purposeful action. Letting go becomes a tool for mastery over your own life rather than surrender to circumstance. The act of reclaiming your power transforms not only your inner world, but also your relationship with the outer world. You engage with people, opportunities and challenges from a position of strength rather than need, from choice rather than fear. Every interaction becomes conscious, every decision deliberate, and every moment lived fully. In letting go, you do not lose your power. You awaken it, claim it, and learn that true freedom is inseparable from the courage to release.